pour a cup and connect with us today as we talk about struggles with infertility. This is Mugs and Mercy. Cheers. So I have 4 children, one of whom is adopted and 3 of whom I had naturally. And despite the fact that I have 4 children, where many people might think like, oh yeah, you just have all these kids, it was quite a journey. And more people than we realize struggle with infertility. It's definitely as many as 1 in 10 couples, but some estimates say it's as many as 1 in 4 struggle with some level of infertility. And so it's something that whether you're struggling with it or whether you know someone is or will know someone who is, maybe you don't even know that you do. We wanted to talk about this episode and how you can support people who are going through it and how you can ask for support or seek support if you're the one going through it. Just a quick content warning. We will be using the correct terms for reproductive system, so parental guidance for little ears.
So just a reminder before we move on, we're dropping episodes every Monday. We have some great episodes coming out. Subscribe, ring that bell, like, share, all the things.
And tell us in the comments what you're interested in hearing more about.
Yes, we'd love to get recommendations and connect with you.
Okay. All right. Before we dive in, girls, Emily, what's in your mug?
Well, I have very strong coffee, decaf, made by my sister. It's actually really good. She's like, I made it a little strong. And I said, I like it strong. And it's very strong. She made me this and put this in this cute Colorado mug. We love Colorado. And it's just decaf with cream and syrup.
Katie,
so it's our signature.
I'm back to my Cinderella good, bad, ugly mug with classic iced coffee. Woo. I did French pressed iced coffee today, just with some creamer and sugar.
Do you French press it hot and then
I French press it cool.
Oh, so you let it sit in there?
Yeah, I let it sit in there, kind of like stir it up a little bit. It actually French press actually works really well for iced coffee. So.
I like that because French press is like my favorite way to have coffee.
Christine, what's in your mug?
Unlike today, where it's just brewed in a pot. Thanks, Mom, for your coffee pot. Just plain decaf with a tiny bit of cinnamon and a tiny bit of monk fruit sweetener. So not a tiny bit of monk fruit sweetener, 2 big spoonfuls. Okay.
Yum.
All right. So Katie, tell us about your journey. It's been a long one.
Okay. So I have 4 children, as I said towards the beginning of this episode. What happened, I'll share kind of the medical side using appropriate detail, nothing too graphic, and then how we got where we were and how.
Because you have more kids than any of us.
I do
at this point in time.
So I was early married, I think just a few months into marriage.
What year were you married again?
I got married in 2016, July 2016. And by like the fall of that year, I started having really bad lower abdominal pain. And I didn't know what it was or what was causing it. And it happened a few times and I was just like, what's going on? And then it just stopped and kind of got better on its own. And then there was one time in particular, it was not getting better. It was the worst pain I'd ever had in my life. And I actually was throwing up from the pain. Oh man. And so we finally bit the bullet and decided, okay, we should go in and be seen. And we went to urgent care first and like, listen, you got to go to the ER. Like we can't figure out what's going on. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I go to the ER. They do a CT and they actually diagnosed me with something called a tubo-ovarian abscess. And it's where your fallopian tubes are, like they said they were like sausage level, like they're supposed to be like a straw. And they said that's what it looked like on the CT. So we thought that's what it was, and there was a whole thing with that and trying to figure it out. But basically we were told at that point.
Does it add up though? The like fallopian tube size? Did it add up in the end knowing what you really had? No.
So basically this was, this surprising thing, and I had to be in the hospital for several days, and they had me on these intense antibiotics. And we continued on in the process. I ended up in the hospital again a few weeks later for a similar thing. And like, what's going on? Did we not get the whole, like, did the antibiotics not work? Come to find out, it was not that the CT was essentially read wrong. I had stage 4 endometriosis and very large cysts on my ovaries. And so we think it's still a little confusing why they thought it was my fallopian
That's
tubes.
what I meant, like, yeah,
so we think that what they thought was my fallopian tubes were actually the very large cysts on my ovaries, because the cysts were like on both ovaries were the size of like tennis balls. So your ovary is like 3 centimeters, or it's kind of like a little like, I don't know, smaller than a golf
Not
ball.
a tennis ball.
No, like a ping pong ball, right? Or even a little smaller than that. And so on top of it is on both sides was a much larger cysts on both sides. So very painful.
we should have brought like a chart so that we could like show like
Maybe in the editing we'll add. We're gonna have to do that. But all that to say, I was very early on in marriage, so at that point we weren't worried about infertility yet. We were like, oh, if God wants us to have children, we will. But we were early
We
married.
got time.
Yes, but it went from that to, oh, I might never be able to get pregnant, and so let's start trying now because this might be a journey for us, and. It's crazy how that shift in like the mentality about it so quickly like becomes heartbreaking when it was very difficult. It took to actually get pregnant. It took 3.5 years, 2 surgeries, various doctors talking to us about different things. I took like a medication to try to reduce my cysts before having surgery, and it kind of worked, but didn't. And then I had a surgery that made the endometriosis pain even worse.
Oh no!
And I know we should have a whole episode just on endometriosis.
yeah, that would be good because I've heard
a lot of women.
I remember you being like taken away in an ambulance because it was so bad.
Yes, that happened one time where I thought maybe because what can happen with the cysts is it's possible to have like an ovary torsion where, and if that happens, you lose your ovary, or if they don't fix it pretty quickly because like blood gets cut off. And there was one time the pain was so sudden and so severe that I thought that might be what was happening. And we did call 911 just because it was like, I couldn't talk. Yeah. I couldn't. Now having gone through labor, I would say that that pain in that moment for me was worse than labor.
Was it more sharp or something like distinct to the spot?
Yeah. And I just, I'm like, I think I'm going to die. I did, thank God. And it wasn't, I still don't know quite, it was just a flare up. Like it wasn't an ovary torsion. It was a really horrible flare up. But yeah, so the first doctor like drained the cysts, but didn't actually like remove the stuff. So it actually made it worse. The pain was worse. And then I found another doctor who like fully removed everything, all the endometriosis, cysts and tissue and all of that, and I was finally having pain relief at that time. And then we were able to refocus on trying to get pregnant, and that's when I got pregnant with the twins. And in the meantime, so in the course of this 3.5 years of trying to get pregnant, we did start the adoption process with our oldest son. And so we'll talk a little bit maybe about adoption today. I do want to say though, some people who are trying to be helpful but aren't really being that sensitive to it might say like, oh, why don't people just adopt? Like, why are they, I hear online or whatever, people
why do you care?
Just, and the word like just before adoption is a very silly thing to say. Having gone through both, right? Like having finally gotten pregnant and having children and going through adoption. Adoption is emotionally, financially, physically a long taxing process, and it's a very beautiful thing. It's
lifelong thing, but
lifelong commitment, beautiful, wonderful, also complicated and difficult, and it's not something like what I like to say, especially if someone's going through infertility and that's kind of the response to it is like, well, why don't you just adopt? Some people like maybe can't adopt for whatever the reason is, but adoption is not the responsibility of infertile people. I think it's something that everyone should discern. I think no matter whether you're easily able to have children on your own or not, I think all married couples should discern it and see if that's something they're being called to.
Whether you are infertile or not, like
Yes,
whether you can have kids or not, it's an option for everybody.
Yeah, and then you talk to your husband, you pray, and you decide. But
when people say like, "Oh, just adopt," there's nothing wrong with the adoption part. It's minimizing the internal female desire and male desire to have offspring that you grow in your stomach. Like, it's a whole spiritual thing. If people can't have their own kids, that's okay, but it minimizes that desire. And
Well, I think it's something that, I mean, we in the Orthodox wedding prayers, there's a lot of prayers about having children, being blessed with children, and seeing your children's children. It is a natural desire and a good desire, and something that we're called to want in marriage. Essentially, like when even though you might think you're being helpful, if you're like minimizing someone's pain and struggle with not being able to get pregnant by saying, well, if you just adopt, like that would solve the problem. Like
or anything, just don't have kids then.
Like, right? Like, why do you care that much? Like, they're separate things, right? Like, adoption is a beautiful, wonderful thing, and infertility is awful.
It's like two things can be true.
It's a cross.
Yeah.
It's a cross.
Yeah, and struggle can be beautiful, and you have beautiful kids and everything worked out. It doesn't work out for everybody, but also I wanted to say we do have Nicole is adopted.
Yes. And my oldest son.
Your oldest son is adopted. We have 2 other cousins that are adopted, so it's like really close to our heart. My husband and I have always talked about one day maybe adopting. So it's like a very beautiful, close to our heart thing. It's just, very different.
Yes, absolutely.
Katie, what did you find during that time? I know it was very emotionally trying for 3 years plus. What brought you the most comfort and relief during that time? Emotionally, spiritually, or was it,
I mean, it was hard sometimes. Can I share like maybe some things that didn't do?
Sure, you can start there.
Because let me start with what didn't, because I like to end on the positive. Because I just, because if you're trying to like support someone through it, oftentimes like people don't, when there's a difficult thing, we don't know what to say. And so there's kind of these cliches that we go to. So someone of faith might have a cliche, just trying to say something along the lines of, when God wants you to have children, you will. Or if if God wants it, like it'll, Especially if they're saying like, or in God's timing, like in God's perfect timing, you'll have children. And the thing is, some people never get pregnant, and some people even want to adopt and don't get that, right? Like there's people who desire children who never get that. God's will for us exists, and like on an individual level and on the level of the couple and stuff. Of course, you should be praying for God's will and seeking it.
Yeah, it's not that that's wrong.
Yeah, I'm not.
Just,
so I'm not saying. Yeah. But when someone is sharing their pain and their feelings, and the response is, oh, well, God will take care of it in his perfect timing. Like, it's not comforting in that moment, right? And the person who's saying that doesn't really know, because God's timing, like the answer might be no from God for whatever his reasons are that we don't understand. And that is allowed to be painful, and you're allowed to like have grief from that, even if that is God's answer, or his answer is yes, and you end up having children like I did, and that's beautiful. But like until it happens, you don't know if it's ever going to happen. Like it's kind of this constant
well, that's the thing, and I know you're going to get into this, but it's a monthly battle, and 3.5 years of that must seem like a lifetime, of that like hope and then disappointment and that grief and everything. So
what I will say, so the positive end of your question on kind of a general, like what's helpful, I would say, just listening. Like if someone is going through it and expressing, even if it's something you don't fully understand, because maybe you're someone who isn't married yet and isn't thinking about kids, or you're someone who has had children and just didn't have difficulty in that area, to just listen and like acknowledge those feelings and like, oh yeah, that I can see where that's like so painful. And to try to understand a little more, like they've done research about like stress hormones and levels of those who are struggling with infertility, and they have heightened cortisol levels. I think we started to talk about it with that grief, that like it's like every month you go through this cycle of like hope, and this could be the month, and maybe, and then not
your body, you feel like your body's betraying you for your deepest desire, and it's like a very like almost feels, I don't know, violent personal or something, like because you're bleeding after that, you know.
Yeah, it's like there's a literal like physical thing that's happening to you that's representing your feeling of failure. I'm not saying anyone is a failure because it's not in our control, but it feels like a failure.
The reason I relate to that, I'm just going to throw in my little story really quick, is we didn't have the same story, but I got married when I was 25, and I wanted to have kids pretty much right away. My husband, you know, he wasn't in a hurry, and we weren't really like actively trying, but it just didn't happen until I was 31 with my first kid. And so that's 6 years of it just not happening. You know, we weren't trying, but it was also like I got my hopes up quite a bit, thinking maybe this was it, you know, and it just didn't happen. So it wasn't like we were like trying and I had endometriosis or anything, but it was 6 years of people going like, when are you guys going to have kids? Or, you know, all your friends having babies, getting married and having kids right away. And just thinking, like, I was like, because Gary, my husband, was always like, it'll happen when it happens. Like, he was nervous to be a dad. But I was always like, let's do it now, you know, And so we weren't always on the same page with that, which was okay, because then when it happened, we were both great and everything worked out. But in God's timing, yeah, which is true.
God's timing is real. It's just sometimes you don't say that as a way to dismiss someone's feelings.
When someone's struggling with anything in life, especially women, you just need to be validated sometimes. Like, that's how you can help someone, I think. I think Christine's really good at that, because I will come to her and be like, this and this and this is happening. And instead of always, like, for me, I automatically, when someone complains, I want to like fix it and be like, have you tried this or this? But Christine will just be like, that is horrible. And I'm just like, I feel so much better, you know?
Something I was going to say, because in the time that we were struggling with this, Christine had her first child and then got pregnant again with pregnant and had her second child. And with your first, we weren't like really in the struggle yet, but with your second we were. And I remember like the way you told us that you were pregnant again. I don't remember the exact like how like, but it was
it was at Thanksgiving, wasn't it?
No, we were getting froyo.
Yes, but it was like even though you were sharing, like, obviously you were excited and I was like genuinely excited for you, but like you acknowledged like my own feelings when you told me, and that like that might be a little hard for us, and I appreciate that, you know. Like it's this joy and excitement for you. Hey,
I know, it's a very
and it's both, like, and so even to know that like if you are someone who's not struggling with it, but you know someone is like thinking about that, like how, like, and maybe if someone like has a hard time going to a baby shower or something like that, like to try to not take it personally. Like, it's like I love everyone who got pregnant in the midst of me not being able to. And I love their kids, and like genuine. And of course I love your kids very much, you know, and I wanted to be there to like support you in the pregnancy and stuff. But like I appreciate that you, knowing what we were going through, like acknowledge that even when you were telling me your own joy, you know.
Yeah. I actually forgot about that. Well, I mean, not totally, but even thinking about this episode, I forgot. But yeah, I wanted to tell, because our family likes to do like big reveals and surprises and big family things. And so I wanted to make sure I told you when you weren't put on the spot or whatever, to give you a chance to process the information. Yeah. So
I remember when I finally got pregnant in 2020, I basically had to FaceTime everybody or do like social distancing filming, talking to people. And I told your parents, and they're like, I hope this is okay I'm saying, but they're like, they're like, oh, Katie is going to be madly excited for you, but maybe don't film her reaction. And so like I was like, you're right. But the kind of neat thing is our kids are only 3 months apart.
I know. I got pregnant
it was only
with the
3
twins
months
3
later
months
that
after.
I was pregnant with my son. And then all of a sudden she's like, by the way, I'm pregnant with twins. So it worked out in the end.
I had to one up you.
But our family was aware at that point you're struggling, and imagine if I was like filming, like, guess what? Like, yeah, and it was. I mean, 2020 was a crazy year in its own. Yeah.
Is now a good time for me to bring up the saints?
Yes.
Because in the Bible and in Orthodoxy, we have some really good examples of saints who have gone through this struggle.
Yes.
Joachim and Anna, Elizabeth and Zechariah, very important, even ancestors of God, the grandparents and John the Baptist.
Well, and Abraham and Sarah too, when you're talking like way back in the Bible, also had that struggle. So.
And that, it almost shows like how serious God takes it. Like that he uses these stories of people struggling to get pregnant as like a big cornerstone in the Bible, and like it's like this big deal.
Yes.
And so it shows that it's a bigger deal than people, if they want to minimize it.
Well, and it shows that God is working in your life even when you feel like that is not working out. Like we had the Feast of Joachim and Anna recently, and like they were old and they were praying, crying out to God because they just felt so like I don't know, rejected by people in the world who were not sympathetic and cursing them, and but God used them, and it was part of his plan to show like there's not shame in that. I think I would imagine like if I was going through it, I might have a hard time with being like, well, God did bless them with the Theotokos, like that's not going to be my story. I don't know. Because like people will say, oh, look, they went through it and then they had all these kids, or they had, this important person. And that might not be the end of every story, but you can pray to those saints who know what you're going through.
Yes.
And
I love Joachim and Anna for that exact reason, because I always felt close to them in those times. Did you?
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. We were asking for her intercessions. Well, my sister, because my parents actually I have to have my mom on sometime just for this story, because they had a very similar story where they adopted first and then had me and my brother. But they named my sister Anna. Nicole is her middle name, but Anna for Saint Anna, because she was the child that they were given. And it was through adoption in her case, but that's why.
And then little Katie came along after that.
Then I inherited the endometriosis, unfortunately.
So Christine had to step away, if you can't tell, for a few minutes, but we wanted to continue this very important conversation.
Yes.
And I had a few questions for you, because I know like my story, but I was curious because you and Nazo never seemed like you guys weakened your relationship. But I'm sure like anything you go through that's big as a family, it can make you struggle, but in the end, if you let it, it can make you stronger. So I was just curious about your relationship through that.
Yeah. I think I don't want to say like we never struggled, because anytime there's a difficult thing and there's pain and you're trying to support, like I think as the husband, it's like you're trying to support, but you don't always know how. And especially in my case, it was like not being able to get pregnant paired with medical issues, right? So actual like surgeries and hospitalizations and things that were really difficult. So I think there were times that, we struggled with communication or whatever in the midst of the stress, but like by and large, it absolutely strengthened us. And we had to, because you have to go through it together. Where you're like going to totally be torn apart,
Yeah. I was just going to say, do you feel like your desire to have children matched each other? Or was there ever a time where he was like, it's going to be fine, and you're like, no, it's not fine, or whatever? Because that's what happened with us a little bit. We kind of switched off like where we stood, and so that was hard. But of course, it made us stronger in the end.
So we didn't disagree on it. Like he was on board to try, basically, like I said in my story, as soon as we found out it was probably going to be difficult for us, he was on board to try, and we did together, and we went through all the medical things together. But I don't think, I think typically the female desire for children is just by our natures stronger. And so I think that's where sometimes he didn't have quite the level of like the pain and grief from it as I did. And so that was where I think it was hard for him sometimes, because he's wanting to be there for me emotionally and support me, and not always fully knowing how, because he's a man. He's not a woman, and he's not going through the biological cycle that a woman goes through on a monthly basis.
Yeah. There's so much to it. Like,
Yes.
everything, the spiritual side, it's, ugh.
Well, I think one of the hardest things for him, as much as he wanted children and stuff, his biggest thing that was hard was like seeing me in pain.
Oh, yeah.
Particularly when there was like the surgeries and those things. And like my second endometriosis surgery where they actually took it all out, which was like a good thing. But even though it was laparoscopic, that was harder to recover from than my C-section. It was just a harder surgery because it was a several hour surgery. They were really taking their time to get everything, but it was a tough recovery because.
And when you have a loved one in any surgery, even if you have a loved one in an inpatient or outpatient, like minor surgery, it's always outpatient. If someone you love is under the knife, that's
under anesthesia,
dramatic, under anesthesia or anything, it's hard. But especially if like your loved one is like having all this stuff taken out and it's taking time, like it's so hard. So I can't. So I'm sure he has his own story and his, everything, his own side of things. But
yes, but I will say what ended up being cool is when I finally did get pregnant, the positive pregnancy test was on our anniversary.
Oh,
so that was a pretty cool.
Did you look at it together or did you surprise him?
I took it at like 5 a.m. Because you're supposed to go like first thing in the morning where it's the most concentrated and stuff, and he was still sleeping. But I didn't because some women might I'm gonna put it in a present and make it a whole thing, and I just went and woke him up. I'm like,
yeah,
really wasn't pregnancy test.
Yeah.
I didn't do the social media filming my reaction or anything. I'd taken a lot of pregnancy tests before that were not positive.
Yes.
So,
well, I was like, there could be a whole episode on just the 2-week wait and that whole roller coaster of emotions because
it's a lot.
Yeah, and if you're going to film yourself but you're not getting positives for months, you feel silly filming yourself every time, and it's just like a whole other thing. But
and then finally it's like, what?
I found out positive. For me when Gary was working out, and I just sat on the bed waiting for him to be done, and as soon as he came out, I'm like, Gary, come here. But the due date was in December, so I put the test in a little stocking, and I was like, here.
How did he react?
I wasn't sure how he would react because he was so casual about the whole thing, and he's like, we'll have kids one day, and he's like, I don't know if we're ready yet and stuff. So I wasn't sure. I knew he would be okay with it and love, but he wasn't. So I didn't film him or anything, but he said as soon as I told him, first of all, he was stoked, and he immediately felt this overwhelming love for this baby, that was, microscopic baby, but that's a full soul, and his child, he immediately fell in love. So it was really sweet. It's really sweet to see.
Sweet Johnny.
Yeah, I know. And now he's wreaking havoc on my mom's home. No, we have 3 4-year-old boys between us. That's a lot of 4-year-old boys. It's a lot of little.
And then our daughters are both only 6 months apart too. So
Oh my goodness! But they seem almost the same age. But anyways, because they're so. Her daughter's very advanced. I feel like we'll probably touch on this subject more eventually because it's a big subject, and I know there's questions I have that I'm.
Yes, I know there's so much more I feel like I could say. And I also I want to say too, I personally know people who are going through this and have been trying even significantly longer than we ever were. And again, don't know if God's answer is going to be yes. And so to just anyone who is struggling, you're not alone. I'm praying for you. We're praying for you. And
you really aren't alone. And this is the other thing. Sorry.
Go.
I was going to say it's very isolating because people don't talk about it. Like you said at the beginning, there's people you know that you don't know are going through this. And so even if you say to someone like, when are you going to have kids or whatever, like you always should be careful with questions like that.
That's
or
something
like,
I was going to try to leave with is like, just as an overall awareness, we bring in things like that into the conversation without, like we think like, oh, this is just a casual question, but it can actually be a really painful question for someone who is struggling with infertility. Maybe they're even struggling with repeat miscarriage, like, it can just, so just to, especially if you don't know someone that well, like it might not be the best question.
And it's hard because people get curious or we have those women who are from a different era that are just like, when are you going to get pregnant? Like I had that a lot.
You have to know like that's going to happen, and maybe you
and try to give them grace.
Yes, but maybe you choose ahead of time. Like, are you going to share? Or like there can be a general answer like that we kind of used, which is like, oh, in God's timing, like we'll see. You know, like it's funny. I would say that back to them, even though I said don't tell the person who's is struggling with infertility. But or God knows, right? Like I would say, like God knows, that was kind of my go-to, but it always like hurts. And then the other one I did want to touch on is Mother's Day, because in my first Mother's Day as a mom was confusing because we had Xander was in our care, but not officially adopted yet. We were years actually from the official adoption taking place. And so it was my first Mother's Day with a child, still never been pregnant after years of struggling to get pregnant. And it's kind of like, oh, we're celebrating you. But, and then Mother's Days before that were also painful because you're celebrating moms and you're not a mom.
Where you feel like imposter syndrome, kind of?
Yes. Well, it was
because you weren't an imposter, but I could feel I
was a mom because I am his mom. But it felt very much like, should I be celebrated here or not? Especially because the adoption,
which obviously the answer is yes,
right?
But you feel like that.
Yes, it was a very strange thing, and again, it's not like. With what I'm saying with this, it's not like, oh, don't celebrate Mother's Day at all because it might hurt people's feelings. Like that's not how it works. Like I have to deal with my own feelings, like there were people who would post things online, like even like when I had Xander, they would, but I wasn't pregnant yet. They'd say like, oh, every mother's given birth to a child, but not my mother. She gave birth to a superhero. Just things that are. But I'm like, but not every mother has given birth,
right?
And so it's a hard thing to hear. But at the same time, I'm like, I need to not say like, oh, nobody should post stuff like that. That's not being inclusive. Like it's being aware, but also like when you're the person struggling with it, trying to also give grace to other people and just knowing they're not in the situation, so you can't expect everyone
to treat you with
it's like it's a balance, but also to not feel like if you need to go home and process privately, or maybe there was at least one baby shower. It was someone who I wasn't super close to, and I just decided to not go because it was too much at the time. And I usually would go, especially with someone I was close to, and I would go with joy and be excited to get them the present and all the things. But like if you need to take care of yourself because it's a particularly difficult time and you can't give of yourself in that way, I think that's a fair and reasonable thing. And to maybe give grace to someone if there's someone who's struggling with it and maybe can't support you in the pregnancy things in the way that you would want them to, be like, okay, I'm gonna just know that that's not my person for this particular thing I'm going through.
The tough reality is any type of struggle, like the world isn't always going to be gentle to you, and it's really hard, but you have to give people grace, and it's not easy, but you learn it through these things. You learn, you can either kind of, like you were never like the victim of this. Like you were never like, woe is me or something. Like you handled it like a champion. Like we always were, like, and I think that's very admirable because like I had breakdowns, I'm like, but for anything,
oh, believe me, I had plenty of times.
And then, if you do see a post, you're like, that's offensive to me. But it's like, once you just got to decide to not like let everything get to you in that. And I feel like if you do, you take care of it personally, because people aren't trying to offend, like those ladies who say, when are you having kids? But you do have to fight for your own mental health. Like it's one of the very most important things you need to do. And that's why it's good to have a nice husband who supports you and family that understands. But Katie, you were very like honorable and strong going through it. So it was very admirable.
Thank you. Well, I'm very thankful to God that he decided to give me my children and their crazy blessings.
And our hearts go out to people who don't get whatever the ending they were.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that God has like a plan for everybody that's
I do
beautiful. Too. But we validate that struggle and that, we're here for you. We understand. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I feel like there's so much more that could be said about this topic. So whether it's a part 2 or I for sure want to do an episode just on adoption.
Yes.
And with my sister when she can come and join us again.
Yeah.
And then
that'll be unique because we have someone who adopted and someone who was adopted.
Yes.
And then someone who loves adopted people,
crew.
So yeah, because that's what we do at Mugs and Mercy.
And then endometriosis is something that affects at least 1 in 10 women too. So if you don't have it, you know someone who does.
Yes.
So that too, I think could be.
I know a few people, and it sounds brutal.
It's a rough one, and not everyone who has endometriosis struggles with infertility, but a lot of us do.
Yeah, being a woman, man, there's so much to it. It's crazy.
But just some last thoughts for people on both sides. So if you're struggling with infertility, just some of the things we've said, like that, taking care of yourself, really praying, like talk to your spiritual father and let them know and see if there's ways you can get support. If there's a support
that could be
group.
like a godfather or a pastor or a priest.
Yes.
For those who don't know what a spiritual father is, someone who can lead you spiritually.
Yeah. And then I think if you know that you know someone who's going through it, the things we've said, like listening, praying for that person, praying with them,
just validating however they're feeling, even if you don't understand, just validating.
Yes. And then in general, being aware that you don't know, like someone might be going through it, and so just being a little bit careful with our common questions of when are you going to have kids? While still giving grace to those who ask, because it's a very common. It's just like part of our culture. Like it seems like just a common question. But
I do have one question more. So I've done this and I probably regret it. But like people, like young couples, I'll be holding my baby and be like, "Do you want this to be your future? Do you want?" Or like I'll say like, "Do you want 10 of them?" Haha, like joking, but I don't feel like I should do that. But what do you think about that kind of?
Well, the one that bugged me the most when I was struggling with infertility was when I would tell people, like when they knew and they'd be like, "Oh, you can have one of mine."
No. But
I think what you're saying is different.
Yeah, no, because it's more like, "Oh, this is your future," like joking.
Yeah.
But I don't do that a lot, but I know I've said that in the past where I'm like, I have no idea if they're either want kids or are struggling. Like, I don't know. It's just because I don't know how I would have felt.
I would say a little nuance, maybe. Like if if someone's like newly married and you know that they kind of want to have kids, but they're not like in an infertility struggle. Like I think that could be, but maybe not to someone that you've just met.
I try to make people. I think the reason I said that is I was trying to make them feel included. Like this could be you. Like that you're not. Like, this isn't impossible for you, but at the same time, I'm like, but if they're struggling with infertility, I feel bad because that would bug me.
Sure.
In that time.
No, I would say use caution with something like that. But yeah, the joke about you can take one of my kids is not. I would not recommend that one.
Yeah, because that's saying like the one thing in the world that you want is their like kind of burden. Like it's not all it's chucked up to be or whatever.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. All right.
All right, Christine. Appreciation.
Talking about this makes me appreciate my husband, who was with me through all of it.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot. And now we have 4 awesome children, and he helps. Well, not just helps, but we're raising them together. And it's beautiful. He babysits now. He's a very involved father.
Christine, what's your appreciation?
I'm also appreciative of my husband. We've been taking care of sick kids recently, and we've been having to sacrifice a lot of personal stuff, and I'm just really proud of him for how he's been putting our family first recently. I mean, not that he doesn't before that, but you just really see it in action. Just sacrifices being made and putting family first. And yeah, I'm appreciative of that.
Well, I will jump on the bandwagon and say I'm thankful for my husband because he recently started a new job and he's been learning this whole brand new system and everything, and he's just doing great. And it's nice to have someone who's so willing to sacrifice and provide for the family in a very selfless way, because he's like, he knows he's going to do it and he makes it happen. And I feel like safe in that, So, yeah.
Katie, how's your goal going?
Okay. My goal is to eat healthier, and I last couple days maybe just didn't do that.
I was the same way. I have the same goal, and we had like a birthday party this last weekend for someone at church.
It was good food.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. At least it was barbecue. At least it was like kind of keto-ish. No, never mind. Lots of macaroni and cheese. But like, I think there were gluten-free cupcakes that were really good too. But as I've been doing better in general, but this weekend was a busy weekend of feasting. No, just kidding. But like, it was. We're getting back on track, right, Kate? Yes. We'll get back on track. How about yours?
Mine was to write down daily gratitudes. It's been touch and go, but I started putting some on my phone. That's how I started off, just because I wanted to write it down perfectly, but that didn't really happen. So I just was not every day like I wanted, but I did yesterday and the day before. So I'm getting back on track too, also. So. Right. Well, thanks for sharing with us today, Katie.
Thank you. And thank you for connecting with us. Yes. Make sure to like, subscribe, and tell us what you want to hear as far as episodes.
And we mean it. We mean it. Don't
really
just not just you comment right now. Let us know what you want to hear.
And we thank you.
Cheers. All right. Cheers.